we've got another unique interview of another incredibly, and I mean incredibly successful person in the network marketing industry, true legend in the industry, one of the people that I've known almost since the very beginning of my career. And that's my good friend from beautiful Squirrel Hill, also known as Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, Arlene Lowy. Arlene, say hello.
Hi, everyone. How are you today?
And Arlene, you and I, we have known each other, what did we just figure, almost 35 years?
It's a long time.
Since we were kids.
We were kids.
We really were. We really were. And Arlene is featured, of course, in our new industry bestseller called Moving Up 2020, which you can get from tremendousleadership.com. And you can get it not only in English, but you can get it in a soft copy. You can get it digital if you prefer that. You can get it in Spanish. You can get it digitally in Spanish as well. And sometime in February, I hope to be releasing this in French. And there are several other languages that we've actually had people, Arlene and Keith, that have reached out to us from places like Hungary and several other countries that have asked if they can translate it. And looks like we might be in 4 or 5 languages before long, which is very exciting, you know, when you do a project like this. So we'll all be celebrities internationally, hopefully, when it's all said and done. But Arlene, I wanted to ask you some specifics. You've been in the industry now for, well, why don't you tell your story better than I can? When did you very first start? What was your very first network marketing experience?
Well, the real experience, which is important, is I lived in the corporate world, and I worked as a two-step market of Sony. And when I worked for Sony, they were all men in my business. And at the time, I was making $36,000 a year. And no matter how much the president of my company asked me to do, whether it was 2 million, 3 million, 4 million quota, I always hit it like it was easy street. Why? Because anything that I've done in my life, I treat it like it's my own company. And I always was brought up that way. So I remember walking into my president's office one day, and I just said, you know, I'm worth $36,000 a month. I'm not worth this $36,000 a year. Every single time you raise the quota, I do what you ask me to do, and you pay me the same. And I realized I was never going to get ahead, and I really was getting sick and tired of it. So I know I competed very heavily against myself and nobody else in my lifetime. And I just walked in and I just said, I'm leaving. And he says, where are you going? I said, anybody but here. I'm tired of you, or I'm working to death and you're going to Saudi Arabia on my dime. I'm out of here. Now, of course, I walked out, and because of my relationship building process, I had about 90 accounts in electronics, and I was hustling down with the warehouses, and I had all these things that I was selling people. And then I went and I dated someone, and he put this box in the middle of the table. And I said, what is this? This is a great story. And he says, it says diet. And I said, well, everybody's on a diet. I mean, everybody's lost 10 pounds, 20 pounds, up, down, their entire life. And I just said very simply, I said, well, if it works, then I can share it with people, because I have to believe in my product. There's no doubt about it. So I went on the product and it worked. And I started sharing with a lot of people. And that's how I got introduced to the industry of home-based business. But what the interesting thing was, a month after I got in the plan, he quit. And I said, well, how do you do this? He says, I don't know. So I looked in the yellow pages. At that time, there were yellow pages. And I looked for the people with the big italics, because I felt like they were impressed with themselves or something. And I called them up and I said, look, I need to know how to do this business, because this business is Herbalife and I don't know how to do it. And I'd like to come to your offices. And so the story goes that I thought when I found this company, I made so much money retailing and I started learning how to do it, but I thought I was going to be there forever. And different things happened in the process of the last 40 years with companies, with people that own the companies, and just different things that have happened. And for that reason, I might have gone to another company. But when I learned about home-based business, oh, I loved it. You know, Johnny, I don't like to get up at 7 o'clock in the morning. I had my master's in teaching, and I never could get to school on time for the children. So what happened was I realized, wow, I could get up at 10 o'clock. I could get up at 12 o'clock. I could change people's lives all day long and make a difference in people. But the first week I was in the business, someone said something very, very important. How would you like to have 1% of 100 people's efforts or 100% of my own? And I said, well, all I've had is 100% my own, and I'd rather still do the same thing since I have my master's in teaching and work with everybody and change their lives. And after Herbalife and a couple other things, guess what? I got to meet John Solider. I'm very emotional right now about that because, Johnny, seriously, I know we've known each other 40 years, but seriously, you taught me the industry. You were my mentor. And they always say, find a mentor. Find someone who's really, really gifted. And although you don't dress the part, you walk the part. And you taught me everything. And I was the greatest student you ever had at the very beginning. And ended up in a company called Lifestyles, which was diet cakes and cookies, which was beneath me to sell something like that because I come from the corporate world. But when I realized that it was a high fiber cookie and that it would expand in your body and make you feel full, I got excited about it. And I know that you had the same problem at the same time talking to people. But that's where I learned how to really do this industry. And God bless you for entering my life, because you, everything that's in this house is because of you. And you gave me the knowledge, you gave me the pointers, every single thing. And that's why I say be a great student and find a mentor and someone who's really, really good in this business, because you'll never go back to any other thing.
Well, Arlene, thank you. First of all, I'm very humbled by what you're saying, because you've been incredibly successful, and you've done everything and beyond that you're supposed to do this business. And let me ask you a couple questions about now. How are you going to use the new Moving Up book, or how are you using it? I know you've already got a bunch. How are you using it with your organization, with your company?
Well, the first thing I did was I said, I'm going to open the book and read it until I can find myself in it. So I wanted to find out where I was and what you said about me. But it's very well done, the book, I have to tell you. You have every angle of the book. I am so fascinated over all the stories. I think the beauty of this is, like, no matter who I say hello to and they ask me what I do, I said, here's something that you need to review. You need to read this book. Let me tell you why. Because what you're doing in your life is linear income. What I'm doing is leveraging myself to residual income. And to only understand what my life and pattern of life is daily is to see the lives of other people that are just like you, coming from every background, every color, every age group, and whatever, and everybody has a tragedy story. Everyone has an ecstasy story. But it's just thrilling to watch how this was put together with all these stories from all over the world, people from everywhere, different age groups. And then the essence of the book that I like is really instilling someone belief in themselves, learning how to change and grow. There's just so many avenues of this book. So how am I using it? Well, I had a gal come over here from Paychecks the other day who does my payroll. She's been my person for like 8 years. I've never met her. I only talked to her on the telephone. And she came in and she says, I came here to give you some Halloween candy. I said, well, I don't eat candy, but you can give me the Halloween candy. I'll dump it in someone's thing on next Thursday. And she said, what do you do? And I said, why don't you sit down at the table and we'll just chat about it. And I pulled out the book. I said, have you ever been in the industry of home-based business? She says, no. And I said, how much money do you make a year? She says, $75,000. I said, wow, 35 years of age, that's pretty good. What's your husband do? And we started talking, and I said, well, that $75,000 isn't guaranteed. That's not going to stay. This world is changing. The evolution of how money is being made, where it's being made. The only way that you can ever do anything and have the time to enjoy your 2 children who are now shipped up to your parents' house because you can't afford daycare and all of these combinations. Wait till you see what college costs. Wait till you see what a child today costs $1 million. I'm sorry. Then if you have a son like me, then it costs a little bit more. But the most important thing to understand is this book should be really given to people that are very new in the industry, that don't have a background in it and need to get it. Number 2, for people that are struggling, that are in your organization, that it hasn't happened yet. And number 3, which is probably my number 1, is giving it to someone who's never been in the industry and open the door to like the small businessman who's suffering because he's going to be closed down very, very soon. because of the competition on the internet. So there's so many avenues. And I know that I only bought 20 of them, but I'm going to buy 20 more because I know that this is a book that I can use for years and years and years as a baseline to introing and changing people's lives. And that's all I like to do. I like to change people's lives and make a difference.
Well, and you know, you made a great point. And that was part of what we wanted to do from the beginning, was to represent as many different socioeconomic, ethnic, you name it, people in all different walks of life. Young people, I mean, the youngest person in the book, John Carlos Torres, 21 years old. Oldest person in the book, Barry White, 82 years old, right? Every age in between. We've got African-American people in there. We have African people in there like Foster Owusu. We've got people from the Caribbean in there. We've got people from Spain in there. We've got people from England, from Ireland, from Mexico, from the Dominican Republic, and of course here from the United States and Canada, and everything in between. And because that's our industry, you know, we're like the, if you will, the melting pot of industries, right? I mean, there is no, we think of network marketing, we don't think of, well, you know, everybody's 35 and white, or everybody's 42 and black, or everybody's Hispanic, or everybody's Asian, or everybody's whatever. It's everybody, right? And we reach out to that. But let's go back a little bit in our time together. When we met, Jordan was 5?
Oh, my God. Okay.
That's so little.
Wait, yeah, 5.
5, and
Yeah.
I
Maybe
remember
5 or 8 or 7 or 8. I just remember when it was very young.
I remember coming to your house and wrestling with them. I think I taught him his first wrestling move.
Right.
Matter of fact, I think 1992, I stayed at your house. My father had died, and I came to Pittsburgh for the U.S. Judo Nationals to compete, and stayed with you, and you were such a comfort and such a friend to me, you know, through that difficult time in my life. But Jordy was too. Jordy was there. He was a little kid, and just a warm, great kid. And I know what he's doing now, but tell our other viewers, because he's been very successful. I know you're very proud of him. And I know you gave him a great education, and you paid every nickel of it from your network marketing business. So share Jordy's story, if you would.
Oh, well, I have to watch what I say because I'm not allowed to talk about him anymore, he says. He's, God, you know, I think what it really is, I was a single parent. I left my husband when my son was 6 months old. And I know a lot of people out there are single parents. And I know a lot of people that are married that are single parents, and they don't realize it because there's always one that's really going to bring up the child. But I wasn't scared when I became a single parent. And I said to myself, I'm going to give my son the best life. I'm going to mentor him subconsciously into believing in himself. So I would say out of the most important thing that I did is he's my best student that I ever had in my entire life. I taught him to believe in himself. I taught him he could do anything he wanted to do, and he could learn how to do it. Well, I didn't realize what I instilled because it was really crazy. Because during his lifetime, he, early on in life, he really didn't like school that much. And he ended up being the Cool Kid Award, the valedictorian. He ended up being Tevye for Fiddler on the Roof. I'll never forget that one. When he's driving in a car with me, and they were going and they were auditioning, and he says, he starts laughing with his kid in the back seat. And I said, well, how did it go? And he says, his friend says, he got the props. He's doing the props behind the scenes. And I said, Jordan, I'm just so glad you tried. He says, Mom, I'm Tevye. I'm Fiddler on the Roof. I said, you got to be kidding. You got to sing and dance. He says, well, when he's saying I'm a rich man, I went, okay, yes, you are. So he really believed in himself that he could do anything. And he didn't look at failure as anything but to learn to the next level. So I remember him going off to school, and the problem with college was that he was trying to save his father, unfortunately, who was not well. And he went to Ohio State when he could have gone to Yale, but he was trying to take care of his father his whole time in school. And to make a long story short, he lost his father 2 weeks into going to college, which I thought, oh my God, now I got to deal with this. But more importantly, after 2 years of Ohio State, I'll never forget, I called him up. I went up to visit him. He says, we need to talk. And he looked at me and he says, I'm out of here. I don't want to be a fireman. I don't want to be a policeman. That's all that's in this school. That's the mentality. I'm going to New York. I said, what do you mean you're going to New York? I'm going back into acting. Well, he went to acting school when he was 14 years of age at Stella Adler Conservatory, and they called him Brando. So I said, well, you can't get in there. He says, yes, I can. He says, I said, they take 12 people a year. He says, I'll call Tom Oppenheim. Watch, I'll make one phone call. He calls him up. I mean, this kid is unbelievable. He calls him up. He says, I'm in. I said, what do you mean you're in? He says, I'm in. So he says, okay, I'm going to New York. Well, God forbid I put him in New York, and I don't put him in his own apartment with doormen and everything. I'm going to have him safe as can be in New York. So that's $100,000 a year, just that. But he decides, I'm going to go to New York, and I'm going to do this, this, and this, and I'm going to do the Stella Adler Conservatory, and I'm going to go to this other place, and I'm going to do it all 1 year. So he's doing double dip. And then they call and they want him for a modeling school. So he says, no, I'm not going to modeling. I'm going to Hollywood, and I'm going into the movies. Make a long story short, it's crazy. He goes and he figures out the whole entertainment business. Now, understand, he left college. He left college. But let me tell you something. You can learn as much as you want from the internet and reading and reading and reading and reading. And that's all he did. And he figured out the whole way to loop into Hollywood. And he ended up being the lead in a film, his first film, which he negotiated, which he did the financing of, in other words, he did like what a lawyer does. He figured out, did all the paperwork and all that stuff with the guy so they could do it. And then it was finance and all that kind of stuff. So he found the financing without ever being taught. Okay, so in other words, I'm saying you can learn anything in this lifetime. Find a mentor, find someone who can teach you something, open up books, read a book. I listen to tapes. I'm 40 years in the industry. I listen to tapes. I read books. I read things every single week to keep on growing and growing and growing in knowledge. That's what he learned to do. Well, after 10 years in the entertainment business, he met people and he decided, I like the business side of it. I want to negotiate. So he started negotiating with Lionsgate, Sony, you name it, and did $500 million contracts, but people didn't come through with the money on the other side. And he finally says, okay, I'm done with all this. This is crazy. Nobody can pull this off. I'm going to law school. I said, you can't go to law school. How are you going to go to law school? You didn't finish college. You don't have a sub degree. He says, wait, watch them. They'll see what I did for 10 years in Hollywood and I'll get in. He goes to this college for law and he unbelievably negotiates with them and they said, you can have a scholarship. He gets in. And the first year he's in law school, he decides, well, wait a minute, I need an undergrad because I want to go to Pepperdine or I want to go to UCLA. So I'm going to go and I'm going to do undergrad. So he's doing 39 credits along with law school in his first year. It's unheard of. And then because of his acting, he goes and competes in the moot court out of 350 people and he wins. Then he decides, okay, I want to go to Pepperdine my second year. Well, you can't go to Pepperdine unless you have an undergrad degree. But I'm telling you, while he did law school, he did 2 years of undergrad so that he could get a certificate in summa cum laude, and he was offered to Pepperdine in 124 hours. And he did that. And guess what? He looks at me and he says, Mom, I lost my scholarship when you transfer, so we have to pay $75,000 a year. I said, here we go. Okay, I can afford it. I mean, it keeps on going. So now I can't even talk about what he's doing in law, but he's just in a class of his own.
He's doing well. I still talk to him probably once a year. He calls me out of the blue and we chat, and he's what is he now, 35?
35.
Wow. Well, how did that happen? When did those years?
Ouch, ouch.
But Arlene, he learned that stuff, whether you realize it or not, by watching you run around the house on your phone, negotiating, recruiting, training, processing, building companies, building organizations, because I'm listening to what you're saying, and I watched it both from a distance and all the times I was in Pittsburgh visiting you guys and watched Jordy grow up, or Jordan now, I guess. His official name, when he LinkedIn's me, he's Jordan now, by the way. Right. Jordy, right? He's still Jordy to us, right? But point being, he learned that from you. Okay, so don't ever forget that. He learned those skills, and his kids. He's got 2 children now.
Oh my God, and it's amazing what they're doing now. His son thinks he's a lawyer. He sits on his computer next to him in his bed and he mimics him, and it's hysterical. And he walks around with a briefcase, and he's 4.5 years of age. It's funny. But one of the things that I wanted to share with that was really important is during the process of all of his life that I lived in an apartment, a 1,400 square foot apartment, and my landlord never raised my rent because she thought I was a struggling single mother. She had no idea I was on the front cover of every magazine. She had no idea what the heck I was doing, except that she thought I was struggling because I was always dressed like you. I was in my blue jeans and my t-shirt. And people used to say to me, why do you live like this if you make so much money? Because they would see me in the magazine. I said, because I can do anything I want to do. I said, but you don't have a pit to hiss in, so I think we need to worry about you.
Exactly.
Bottom line is what I did with Jordan is Jordan saw me in companies along with you and other people and saw companies go down. And I had built 30,000, 40,000, 50,000 a month, and I had to start all over. And instead of going crazy as a single mom, I just went into action, survival mode, and rebuild again. And it can happen in this industry. You never know what's going to happen. So he saw me not fail, but he saw me reach these pinnacles that were, my father was a doctor at that time. He made 50, 70,000 a month. And I used to go in to say to him, I make as much a month as you make a year. And my father couldn't understand that. He thought I was some glorified salesperson who needs to get a job.
Mm-hmm.
But Jordy learned to be an entrepreneur. He learned to think like an entrepreneur. He wasn't worried about failure. He wasn't worried about things not working in Hollywood and starting all over and doing everything. He's got those skills down pat.
Well, Arlene, it's not on my list of questions, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Brief response to this one, okay? Because I got a couple other questions for you, okay? But I know your brother, okay, was college roommates and friends with a guy who became a pretty good entrepreneur too in my town in Dallas by the name of Mark Cuban. And I know we've had a few Mark Cuban jokes through the years that we probably shouldn't tell on the internet. But did Jordy ever talk to your brother about, watching Mark and all the stuff that he went through? Because I know he knew him, obviously early on, they were roommates and friends. So they ever talk about that?
Not really. He just, the only thing my brother ever said that Mark Cuban still owes him $20 he presented.
That's one of the stories I wasn't going to tell, but as long as you told it. He said, if I ever see him at a basketball game, I hit him up for $20. And I was like, okay.
Yeah, no, I told him, I said, why would you ask him for $20? Why don't you do the interest?
Yeah, he can afford it. So let me ask you this question, back to us, okay? So we're talking about a lot. Of course, we've been friends for so long, more than half our lives, if we think about it. And now you're at a different point. Your grandma, you're an elder statesman in the industry, right? You've had all this success. What about the legacy now? The legacy of not only being in a book, actually the second book, you were in the first, the second book I wrote, and now obviously this book, which is the final in this Moving Up series, of course. But what about the legacy? What about, how do you feel about, what you've done here with your life?
Well, I think the legacy really is that my son carries my legacy, okay, because he is a spitting image of me in a man, and even tenfold, as I said. Actually, you know how you say when you have a child, they look like you, or someone in the family looks like you, in a sense, like a reincarnation. Just everything about my life and how I treat people and how no one knows I make money. No one can tell when they see me. I don't act like it. I'm like you. I care more about the other person. And so my personality, my work ambitions and everything else, and my success in life is carried through my son as he carries it through his family. And I only think about the list of things I want to do with my money. I'm more or less on the level of Oprah Winfrey, of what I'm going to give back to. I mean, St. Jude's is a real big should-do on my list. My bucket list is what I can give back to, not what people can give to me. So pretty much in my years, it's going to be transferred into that. But I'm still enjoying the industry, though. I still love it. I don't know if I can retire. It's really hard to.
No. Well, I had breakfast with Larry Thompson last Friday morning in Dallas, and Larry's got a good, about 10 years minimum on you and almost 20 on me. And same thing with him. It's like, what do we do if we retire? What do you do? I went fishing on Monday for a few hours. I was bored to death. I caught a big fish, and I said to the guy, can we go back now? I got work to do. I got people I got to call. So let's talk about the future. So here you are now. You're at the age that you're at. You're grandma. You're successful. You've done extremely well in life. But, you're you're still going. What's the future look like? Tell me about the next 10, 15, 20 years. What are you going to be doing?
Well, it's probably going to be choosing the things that I want to do in my life, whether I want to travel. And I love to teach. I love to teach. So I'm probably going to go into avenues where I'm going to do things online, where I'm going to continue to teach people, you know, just to believe in themselves. There's just so many things that I want to do. But I think that I want to spend time with my family, want to spend time with my grandchildren because they're on the West Coast. And there's special friends that I have in my lifetime. All the people that I was very close with in Canada, I'm still close with after 35 years. I'd like to spend some time with them. But more importantly, really enjoy every day for what I want it to be and keep on growing with other people. I'm going to have a real tough time retiring. Just understand, when you talk about the next 10 or 20 years, I probably will have my mouth always going, always mentoring someone in some way, shape, or form, because my master's in teaching. So it's pretty much that.
Good, good. Well, that's what we, I think that's what we were sent here to do, was to mentor the next generation. And hard to believe where we started, that we are now, getting to that point of being in a elder statesman, elder stateswoman roles in our companies and in the industry. But, I think it's important that the younger people see what we did. Okay. Like we saw what, some of the people that I knew, like Larry, like Mark Hughes, like Bobby Depew, like Jim Rohn, never met Rich DeVos or Mary Kay or Dr. Shackley, but, all of those people, what they did, the legacies that they built and some of their words, the people who were handling the book for us, the people at Tremendous Leadership, Charlie Tremendous Jones, one of the real developers, if you will, the self-development industry in this part of the world, all the things that those folks did who have now, passed on to the next life, that we're still here, we're still relevant, we're going to be hopefully for many, many years, but that we pass along those messages to the next generation. So in closing, I want you to stay on because we got a few questions that we might not put on the video because of our friendship all these years. So we'll call that the bleeps and blunders that we won't release, Keith. So in closing, talk to the young people. Talk to the people that are, Jordy's age or younger. What can they do in an industry like this? And more importantly, how can they affect and help not only themselves, but other people going down the road?
Well, first of all, I'm starting to bring in people that are anywhere between the age of 21 and 35. That's the next group of people that are going to build this industry. Those are the people that have to learn that when they come out of college, that very few of them will ever have a job. Most of the largest debt in this country right now is going to be and is school loans. That's the hugest debt in the whole world. The majority of people would never be able to pay back their school loans if they even tried. And what happens in our industry, which I'm noticing with that, is that all the people that I grew up with that had children that were 5 years of age or 7 years of age have grown up with their parents doing this business are actually at 18 and 19, they're now giving them the Kiyosaki books. They're giving them the Rich Dad, Poor Dad. They're giving them that kind of stuff plus your book and that stuff to start educating them on another way that they can live their life. And so for me, when you talk about that generation, I'm working with kids like that. And that's the next generation that I'm giving your book to. That's why the next 20 books that I buy are going to people between the age of 18 and 35 years of age. And when I meet them, I'm going to say, hello, I need to introduce you to me. I want to introduce you to a life that you can have that's very real. Because you know as well as I do, the storefronts are going to shut down. Everything is going to change. I mean, George Jetson knew about our life before we did. Let me tell you something. It pretty much is where it's going to be.
Yeah.
So, my legacy, when you talk about the legacy of my family, my next legacy is teaching the younger generation and getting them into this mode.
Yeah, I remember years ago I was having lunch. The one time I ever had a chance to have lunch with Jim Rohn in Dallas, and with Charlie Regis, and of course he's now gone, and Jim of course is gone, and it was one other guy at the luncheon, and I remember talking about this legacy thing then, and I was probably 35. you know, and you're thinking legacy. I'm 35. I haven't had my kids yet. I mean, legacy. And they were, you know, these guys were, yeah, you know, 20, 25 years older than me at the time. That legacy word becomes important as we get older. Not only what we have done, but what we will do, but more importantly, how it affects that next generation. And I think you've done a superb job in your leadership, not only in your company, but throughout the last 40 years. You know, there's so many people as I go around the industry that know you or know of you and say, you know, oh, I know Arlene, I saw her here, I saw her there. And, you know, once again, it's a testament to your hard work, your diligence, your great tenacity. Frankly, I've never seen anybody work the phone harder than you. I've seen some people work the phone hard. I know a few that I would put in the same category, but I never saw anybody make more phone calls in a day than you used to make. You used to wear me out with watching you on the phone. I go, Arlene, give it a break. Let's go have some matzo ball soup. Come on. Remember those
They
days?
closed down that restaurant, honey. They closed down.
See, because we stopped going. We stopped eating meat. That's what happened, right?
That's right. That's right.
Schwartz's in Pittsburgh. Wasn't it Schwartz's? Is that what it was called?
No, it was Weinstein's, honey.
Weinstein. Schwartz's was in Montreal. But anyway, so Art, you know, thank you so much for your time, number one, your leadership, more importantly, your career, your life, everything that you've meant to me and to your organizations and the people in the industry. Thank you, and continue blessings to your business and to Jordan and grandkids and all that. I know you're probably going out there for the holidays to see them. So have a wonderful time.
Thank you very much.